So what are we doing? Are we just jumping right into this?
Indeed we are, because we are 4 days out from WandaVision, aka the belated actual beginning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4, aka the first new thing to really ping center mass on our particular content algorithm that hopefully won't turn out to be a total bummer letdown, and we've got some ground to cover, so let's dispense with most of the formality of setup and get right to it. So in August of 2019, back when somehow we still didn't know exactly how bad this was all still going to get, we just finished getting the first big dump of reveals from what was going to be the now still yet incoming next wave of MCU stuff following the big finish and wrap-up of what we're now supposed to call the Infinity Saga across Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Homecoming. And on the occasion of this, The Big Picture published just a bunch of episodes assembling all that had been revealed, was rumored, and what we were able to extrapolate it might mean from things coming up in the actual movies and series based on that and the material it was all inspired by in the first place, because well, it was the most popular thing I had a readily available background in that I can produce content around in quick turnaround. What do you want? This is a job. I do have bills to pay, of which there are many. Anyway, one of them was focused mainly on WandaVision and what we knew about it and star Elizabeth Olsen's next known MCU appearance in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which wasn't much at the time, but at least in my mind was enough to make some big guesses, talk about some old comic book stories, and formulate at least one big moonshot mega theory. Now, I uploaded a remastered and annotated version of that episode to the channel yesterday. You can watch it and come back if you like. But here's the thing, not only has there been a bit more seen of WandaVision itself since then in the form of trailers and clips, etc., there's been a lot more characters and actors added to the cast. The main characters have been scheduled for more appearances in future Marvel films, the release schedule of those films has changed around quite a bit, and there's been several new officially announced projects and even more unofficial rumors, which compelled me to revisit and augment what I said back in 2019. So that's what we're going to do here, straight through to the relevant parts of the Is This Phase 4 video, and in the spirit of the series, to keep everything in order, the old parts are in black and white. Oh, and to be clear, as of this writing of this script, I have not viewed any preview screeners or been privy to any of the spoilers for WandaVision itself, so I can't actually spoil the show if I tried. But since some of the old comic book stuff we talk about might end up getting referenced in the show, or rumors might end up coming true, look, you never know, proceed at your own risk, roll tape. Okay, so now we know what Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4, now with TV stuff you actually have to watch, looks like, unless they add another Spider-Man and another Avengers. Lady Prequel, Friends of Steve R, Sexy Rainbow Space People, Sorry About Iron Fist, Not Legion, Oh Yeah, You Never Got a Part 2, Let's Take Care of That, Graphic Design Is My Passion, Market Research for Future Projects the Series, a Goofy movie but with Legolas and Katniss, and Natalie Is Our Friend Again. But what we don't know is what the big story is. So, since then, we are in fact getting a new Spider-Man. It sounds fucking bonkers, and we're going to talk about it more in a bit. It also sounds like the Miss Marvel Disney Plus series is targeting a 2021 release, so that actually might make it part of Phase 4 as well, though it is a little bit unclear. Ditto She-Hulk and Moon Knight, both of which aren't expected to hit until 2022 at the earliest. Most outlets have been reporting everything announced to this point as Phase 4, and I'm inclined to do the same, sure, but I don't know, and I don't think they've officially said so. I could be wrong, and it's a lot of material, so either way, speaking of who knows what phase is what in the interim, we also found out that Fantastic Four is finally in early development. Captain Marvel 2 remains a go under director Nia DaCosta, which is also a WandaVision tie-in. We'll circle back to that. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 still happening under the rehired James Gunn, who is also doing the Guardians Holiday Special now. Ant-Man 3 is official, and in terms of brand new news, there will be additional Disney Plus shows in Ironheart, a teenage girl who builds her own Iron Man armor, a Nick Fury-led series for Samuel L. Jackson titled Secret Invasion, and an Armor Wars series being set up as a lead vehicle for Don Cheadle as War Machine. So put a pin in a lot of that for now. So the biggest WTF in the lineup by far was WandaVision, because a show about Vision and Scarlet Witch just chilling out happy sounds odd, and also Vision is dead, leading many to speculate that the series would involve some kind of dream or alternate reality time travel, since in the comics, Wanda's very vague and hard to explain and kind of silly powers involve being able to rewrite the fabric of reality itself if she wants to. She and Quicksilver are also raised as babies by a midwife who is an artificially hyper-evolved humanoid cow. Her name is Bova. I don't think you'll need to know that, but aren't you kind of glad you know that now? Alright, so something I didn't bother to explain in the original at all, because at the time I was still in the midst of writing for a niche audience that would already know this, which I fully concede is kind of missing the whole point. But anyway, if you're a casual fan, or even just a fan who mainly to exclusively knows these characters through the films at this point, you might be confused as to why the super devoted comic fans have a particular obsession with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and fixate on Wanda in particular as a possible vector for all kinds of big changes that could happen in the cinematic universe, when there hasn't really been any indication that she or her extremely vague abilities are actually all that important, and really, if anyone is the key to anything, shouldn't it be Vision, aka the guy who literally has an Infinity Stone for part of his brain?
That's a very good question.
And okay, the shortest possible comprehensible version of this is, well, it wasn't the case when any of them were first conceived and hasn't remained the case permanently. For a long time in the shared continuity of the Marvel Comics universe, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver had their respective powers because they were mutants.
That just raises further questions.
As in, like, everyone else in the X-Men's orbit. Specifically, they were the children of Magneto. This established one of the strongest back-and-forth narrative bridges for the interconnected Marvel universe, since the X-Men and the Avengers were both team books with rotating members, many of whom starred in their own series, and the decades where this was the established status quo were also the decades when comics in general were selling the most actual copies and getting turned into animated series and generating devoted fandoms. But it's also when Marvel was being managed kind of poorly from the top and in a bunch of debt, so they sold off their movie rights to different companies, which is why when the MCU started, they couldn't talk about mutants or Spider-Man, and then the X-Men movies could have their own version of Quicksilver, and the MCU version of both him and Scarlet Witch had to have different origin stories. But now Disney owns everything that used to be 20th Century Fox, and thus the rights to the X-Men again, so people think it's possible that if weird reality-changing stuff is happening either in or beginning with WandaVision, maybe rewriting the timeline so mutants are a thing, and she and her dead brother were that could also be a part of it, and that's how the X-Men can get grandfathered into this and also be a thing. I'm a little skeptical about this. I don't know why you'd, need a multiverse story to bring the X-Men in, unless you were going to actually, bring one of the casts of the various X-Men versions from the Fox movies over, as opposed to just casting entirely new actors. And at this point, it seems like they're going to just cast entirely new actors, but, I mean, okay, sure, maybe, possibility, but I doubt it. But anyway, that's a thing. In the comics, when Scarlet Witch and Vision got married, they moved to the suburbs and had 2 kids of their own, even though he's a robot using magic and science because comic book, but it ended up badly. Okay, so now we can talk about what we actually know about the show, which appears to be chiefly inspired by both the classic series I'm referencing in that clip, Steve Englehart's original Vision and Scarlet Witch Volume 2 from 1985, and Tom King's Eisner-winning Vision from 2015. Though I'm thinking more in tone and texture than necessarily in plot in both cases. Specifically, both books were offbeat, let's try something different comics built around the premise of highly unusual superhero characters trying into varying degrees of tragedy failing to live normal suburban lives in the all-American ideal sitcom sense of the word. In the Vision and Scarlet Witch, they chiefly dealt with interruptions by various superhero business and the prejudices of their human neighbors, while also negotiating the magically conceived and induced birth of their twin sons, Tommy and Billy. There's obviously a lot more to it than that, but suffice to say, neither the relationship nor the existence of certain characters are very stable, and decades later, the 2015 Vision series is about Vision on his own, fresh off having his memory and personality wiped out for the 20th or 30th time at that point. Once again giving suburbia a go, this time with a whole family of fellow synthezoid robots he's created for himself, who are also perfectly imperfect, emotionless yet overly emotional beings who just can't seem to fit in despite their best efforts. And it's a really good story, but also very sad and creepy. One of the main lasting effects of it has been the addition of the teenage-looking female daughter synthezoid Viv to the regular rotation of Marvel youth heroes. In any case, probably a little sad in spots and definitely a lot creepy seems to be the order of the day for WandaVision, the trailers for which initially leaned on the surprising comedy affect of placing the 2 main characters in quaintly accurate recreations of different eras and styles of TV sitcoms, but subsequently evinced a more sinister undertone with the world changing around them against their will, glimpses of energy portals and shield-like facilities, suggesting some kind of contained dimension or hostile simulation.
Moved from where? Married when? Damn it, why?
Stop it! Stop it!
I think something's wrong here.
Wanda, can you read me? Who's doing this to you?
And characters like Catherine Hahn's nosy neighbor and Tiona Paris as Monica Rambeau, who is meant to be the now grown-up version of Lashana Lynch's character's daughter from Captain Marvel, and is herself slated to jump directly from her debut here to Captain Marvel 2, along with Miss Marvel's Iman Vellani, acting like they maybe kind of know something about the world isn't exactly right.
What's up?
Who are you?
I don't know.
Am I dead?
Why would you think that?
Because you are.
Supposedly the series, playing out over the course of 9 episodes, will each apparently mimic the style of a different era and or subgenre of classic American TV sitcom from the 1950s up to the present, about which I once again have to ask, does enough of the present-day main Marvel-consuming audience under the age of, say, 30 even have the frame of reference for these references anymore? Guess we're gonna find out. So there's certainly plenty of room in that kind of setup to indulge the smiley happy face papering over something either actually wrong or even evil concept. The obvious question to be answered being who or what is responsible for maybe trapping one or more persons in what kinda has to be some kind of dream or simulation, because Vision is very dead. We saw him be dead. So anyway, about the two kids. Because the two kids weren't actually real, or rather more unreal than they were supposed to have been, and the devil, like literally the devil, was involved in all of... Look, they changed what was actually going on here a few times retroactively, but basically the kids were blinked out of existence in the end, and this was so traumatic, everyone who knew about it agreed it was just best to wipe the whole incident from Wanda's memory and just never bring it up again.
Not a great plan.
The full tragedy part of the 1985 Vision and Scarlet Witch family life story actually came after the miniseries itself in the pages of West Coast Avengers, which is where it's revealed via Scarlet Witch's original magic teacher, as in like a teacher of actual sorcery in addition to all the mutant reality-changing stuff they still hadn't reconciled by that point, the literal witch Agatha Harkness. A lot of people think Catherine Hahn's nosy neighbor character is actually going to turn out to be the MCU version of her, FYI, that she had not created the kids by magically combining her own life force with Vision's synthezoid DNA. Don't think too hard about it, since, it didn't happen anyway.
That just raises further questions.
But had willed them into existence as an illusion of pure dark magic that only existed under her own subconscious concentration, i.e. they disappeared whenever she's not around or sufficiently distracted, which she is not supposed to have been able to do, but could in this case because the situation was being manipulated by Mephisto, who is,
Who could trick us into doing that? Could have been... Satan!
Okay, so for a certain period in comics it was kind of vague as to whether or not the devil was one of those things you were allowed to use or mention by name because reasons, so Marvel had a couple different demonic underworld guys who were supposed to be the devil, but also maybe not. Mephisto was the most common of these, and even later when it became totally fine to use the devil, they just kind of kept using him a lot of the time, and it sort of comes and goes as to whether or not he's actually the Satan or not, depending on who's writing and what the function of the story is. There's some really big gossipy rumors about this one that I'm just going to kind of avoid just in case, but I would be very impressed but also very surprised if Mephisto makes it into this as anything other than a red herring, an Easter egg joke for hardcore fans, or a major overhaul of the character otherwise. Despite the reputation for playing it safe, yes, the Marvel movies have taken a couple bravish swings in terms of ideas they're willing to explore in the most mainstream franchise on the planet, granted, but apart from glancing at it via Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., anything from Abrahamic monotheism has been kept fully segregated so far from the science and magic are one thing, and the gods are aliens and cosmic beings mechanism of the rest of the MCU, and I just don't see that can of worms getting popped open here. I mean, it would be a hell of a thing if they did, but I doubt it.